I always say that I didn't have a property business. I had a scatty six-figure WhatsApp business. Everything was messy. I was a cleaner. I was in guest communication. I was having to speak to that person, speak to that person. Everything was all over, and honestly, it made me really hate the business. I feel like the major problems for me was
today we have a ex-client of mine who goes by the name of Freeman Richard. Freeman, how you doing, man?
I'm very well, man. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm not too bad. How's business?
Business is doing very, very well. Thanks to you.
Let's tell people a little bit about sort of yourself and kind of what you've been doing recently.
Good. So I'm an all-around property entrepreneur. I specialize in the short-term rental service accommodation / Airbnb model, where I take properties on from landlords and I sell it to working professionals on a night-by-night basis, and we operate all over the country. And so I started working, a typical 9 to 5, as most people do. Realized that wasn't it for me. I've always had a hunger and an interest for property, but unfortunately, living in London, South London specifically, it's not that easy to get on a property ladder. Obviously, other than that, it's just working pretty much a dead-end job, working in finance, going through the system, typical 9 to 5. But I really wanted more for myself.
The Clock Out by Noon is about helping people kind of systemize and scale and grow. But obviously, when we sort of met you, you already had a portfolio of properties. So give us a little bit of a background about, typically before we kind of worked together, how was you running your business? How were things before we sort of got together?
I always say that I didn't have a property business. I had a scatty six-figure WhatsApp business. Everything was done on WhatsApp. Everything was messy. I was a cleaner. I was on guest communication. I was having to speak to that person, speak to that person. Everything was all over, and honestly, it made me really hate the business.
Yeah, I mean, what would you say kind of the major problems you were facing back then?
I feel like the major problems for me was the systems. I felt like everything was all in one. All the guests had my phone numbers. I tried to hire some staff. They kept on leaving. They kept on asking me what to do all the time, which peed me off because that's what I paid you for. So I just feel like all the systems and all the processes were top to bottom, and on top of that, it was during our peak season as well. So it meant that I was losing business. Some of my clients weren't necessarily happy with the level of service in terms of how long it takes for us to get back to them. So a whole system was an issue, and I just felt like I was doing everything by myself.
Cool. I mean, typically there's always going to be sort of doubt for working with someone new, someone coming in and saying, look, hey, I can help you with your business, especially if you never worked with them before or you don't know them. What would you kind of say maybe were some doubts that you had about kind of, signing up with Clock Out by Noon or jumping in the Clock Out by Noon framework?
Good question. I think ultimately I thought like this was just the way the business is. I didn't really see it getting better, to be honest. I know when we spoke on our first call, you mentioned there's a lot of things of how I can improve my business and how I could clock up by noon. I just thought that was just a real catchy name and not an actual lifestyle that one can actually attain. So there was elements of doubts is this even possible, honestly speaking? I didn't really think that there was a framework or that there was a system that could be implemented to fix a lot of stuff. I just felt like this is just the name of the business. This is what the life of an entrepreneur is, and I just have to suck it up, to be honest.
What did life look like? What did your business look like, maybe say after about 4 to 6 weeks? What kind of changes did you start to see?
Immediately after 4 to 6 weeks, I immediately saw myself not working inside my business, and I was working on my business. And don't get me wrong, it was quite scary because you told me Freeman, you need to relinquish the realms and
it's always hard.
Yeah, and it was very, very hard to do that. But then it meant that I could actually step away from my business for a day and nothing would break. And that was a very rewarding feeling. And that I immediately felt that was my first kind of high from working with you guys, which is really, really good.
What things did stepping away allow you to do? Because I think a lot of the time people, they get caught up in, they feel they're not running a business unless they're doing everything within their business, which we both know that's not how you run a business. When you was able to kind of get back your time, what did that allow you to do?
Make more money. Make a hell of a lot more money, frankly speaking. How I looked at it and how you even helped open my eyes was that me speaking to guests, me cleaning the properties, me trying to handle maintenances and damages that happen in property are not revenue generating activities. and that they can be done by someone else once I've trained them and that they've gone through like the system framework that you showed us, right? And because of that, it meant that I could go on viewings, I could meet up with landlords, I could speak to developers, I had a lot more investors who were willing to work with us, I had a lot more time to make a lot more money for my business.
You know, it is about identifying the things that you shouldn't be doing and then identifying what you should be doing. What was the biggest things that allowed you to achieve the level of success that you've now achieved?
I think for me massively was an improvement in my hiring process. I had a massive churn of virtual assistants. Like I always knew, like, obviously I needed to hire people, and you always say like a team is what makes a company great, but I had more VAs than I've had hot dinners. You know what I mean? And until you taught us the appropriate structure and the appropriate way to start hiring quality people, I've had the best team members ever. They do pretty much 95% of everything in my business. I'm having to even ask like, hey guys, is there anything I can do? You know, sometimes. So I feel like that was like a big thing for me that massively brought back a lot of my time.
I know a lot of people, one of their biggest concerns or fears is hiring someone.
Yeah.
You've built your baby and now it's like you need to hand that over to someone. There's that kind of trust issue.
Yeah.
How did you overcome that trust issue?
It was very hard, and I think previously I would just sort of hire someone and plunk them in, and I feel like that's why there was a real power or trust struggle there. But when you taught us how to hire quality team members, but also how to appropriately train them, that really helped giving me that really helped me trust them and also be able to give them the reins to the business so that they can now manage everything. You know, when it comes to speaking to guests, even handling our finances and our inventory and our invoices as well. So being able to hire quality A-team players was like a big thing, and it's brought us back so much more time. We don't even spend that much money. Before we used to hire, I think, 3 or 4 members of staff. Now we only have 1 or 2. So we were able to cut our expenses by 50%, which is a big thing of labor, but also able to increase our revenue by 50% as well. So overall around 100% increase in an opportunity.
When did you actually realize that after implementing these frameworks and these systems and creating the processes that this is actually working for me?
I'll give you the quick story of it. We had a leak in one of our properties whilst the guest was in there on the Monday, typical Airbnb, and we have a team meeting every Thursday, and by that team meeting on the Thursday, the team informed me that the leak was sorted, the landlord was informed, a contractor came to extrapolate the leak, skim it, sand it, paint it, and the guests were fully happy, and we got left with a 5-star review. And that was like a real pinch me wow moment, because I felt like, wow, I'm only getting told that there are issues once they've been sorted. As to previously, like, Freeman, the Wi-Fi is not working, what do I do? Now, like, a big issue can happen, my team know exactly what to do, how to sort it, and I literally just sign off. And like, that is like the most, like, I feel like I actually have a business.
I was going to say, how did that make you feel in that moment?
I feel like before I had a side hustle, now I've got an actual business. And that was a big relieving thing for me, and then now it gives me an opportunity to spend more time with my family, spend more time with my missus, get into other endeavors as well of business. So it's just, you know, again, I know we say something, but to really clock up by noon, right? To really clock up by noon, I know by like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, I'm done. My main business is focused. My main business is finished, and I can do whatever the hell I want to do with my time now.
What was something that maybe surprised you in working with me or implementing the clock out by noon frameworks?
What surprised me was that a lot of your systems and the processes that you taught us to implement on our business were very universal. In addition to that, as one I mentioned earlier, it's also something that I've now been able to apply to completely different businesses outside of the niche. So it wasn't just unique to running my property business, but it also applied to my consulting business. It also applied to other endeavors that I'm also involved in as well. So the fact that it's a universal process and system that can apply to multiple different things, that was quite surprising, because I'm not gonna lie, there was a bit of doubt where I'm thinking like, this can't work for me, like they're quite different in the same way, but you reassured us, and obviously the proof's in the pudding.
As you know, we are in a trust recession, and there's a major lack of trust from people buying coaching services, consultancy services. What made you decide I was the right person to go with?
I think ultimately it was your wealth of experience in business, full stop. Yeah, it helped. We're also both in property, but I felt like there was so much to learn from you. And when I look for a mentor and I look for guidance, I don't just sort of look at the sort of front end of things. I'll sort of look at that person as a whole. I felt like the fact that you've had so many different businesses that you've scaled and that you've grown, there was so much more to learn from. And it also meant that once I've conquered this initial business and this property business, which I have, it now will give me an opportunity that I can use a lot of your frameworks, a lot of your systems and your processes in my other business, which will also allow me to be successful. And I feel like with a lot of the people who are currently out there right now, they're kind of only like a one shoe fit kind of organization, where I feel like you have a breadth of experience that can apply literally to any type of business. And I know anything that you've taught me now in my property business, I could apply to any other business as well. So I think ultimately for me, that's like the main deciding factor.
You've gone on to do some amazing things. You're now running multiple businesses, but I want you to be honest and be real. Was there ever maybe a moment that you doubted whether this was the right thing for you, or I was the right thing for you? Or
yeah, for sure. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, for sure. Without giving out too much of the source away, but your systems and processes rely on the business owner stepping away from the business. And as we sort of mentioned, it's our baby, right? It's like our little kid. And for me to step away from my business, something I spent the last half a decade building, and you kind of just telling me, Freeman, you need to implement these structures, you need to implement these systems, and you need to hire these people. There was a bit of resistance, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't really believe in the process, but you're like, Freeman, just trust me, right? And I did. I took that leap of faith and I trusted you, and obviously the rest is kind of history. And then yeah, just sort of like trusting in John, trusting in his processes, and like literally do whatever he tells you to do, because I promise you it will be worth it, 110%. And then yeah, and obviously I can clearly see in your business he's very transparent in terms of his business, in terms of what he does and how he operates, and also giving an insight. There was like loads of times where like you brought me into your team meetings as well, in terms of how you guys are well structured as well. So that was quite fascinating, and I've stole a lot. I stole a lot.
Cool, guys, there you have it. Freeman Richard is doing amazing things within the property space and the consultancy space. You know, when we met Freeman, like you said, he was running a WhatsApp 6-figure business, and things were chaotic, and there was chaos everywhere. We were able to kind of, you know, go into his business, see what was going on, plug the holes, and just get him more systemized, more, you know, creating the processes, and just allow him to run a business that doesn't rely on him. And now he has a team that he trusts, that he can step away from his business and not feel like, oh my god, everything's going to fall apart. And for me, that is what the Clock Out by Noon framework is about. It's not about working more, it's about working less, so you can focus on the things that are really important and the things that are going to grow your business and take your business to the next level.